Happy New Year, people. Welcome to Source Energetics. My name is Ashtara. And today I'm going to be going into the Ascension templates and the energetic templates that I read into the year of 2025. So the first portion is going to be the general collective energies that is kind of floating around to be anchored through this year. And I know that you could argue that calendars don't really matter, but it kind of does because the entire mass collective begins to render a new cycle. So there is a whole new opening. So 2025, welcome to 2025, which is a linear year, but at the same time, this is an actual point in time that I feel like the multidimensional time spectrums are beginning to anchor simultaneously through the linear timelines. And this hasn't been done before to the degree that we know it in our entire era of, like, obviously the ancient civilizations had access to this level of multidimensional time spectrums that is simultaneously wide open to the portals of linear time. But for us in this cycle of forgetfulness and then remembrance, this is the first time that you're able to access these multidimensional time spectrums through the consensus reality. So what that means is that this is a year that time is going to be upgrading massively. And you may already be feeling this if you are advanced. If you are one of the kind of first wave of humans who are actually integrating these multidimensional time spectrums, you would currently be going through, right now as we speak, a cycle of initiations where you are challenged with the flow of time, because the way that your cognitive mind processed time in the previous cycles of your life, it literally doesn't resonate with you anymore. It doesn't ring true. So you might have even like a visceral reaction to the mind stream or the thought loops that enforce this linear time as a monodimensional rendering of time. So you might actually have anxiety around time like you haven't felt before to that degree, because you're just genuinely tuning into the truth. Whereas linear time was more real in the past, like, say, a decade ago, give or take a few years, it was more real on a consensus level in the earthly dimensions. But now we're actually converging dimensions. It's quite literally happening. This dimensional shift that people have been talking about, which people call it a shift into the fourth density, or people call it like a fifth dimensional Earth, but it's so much more than fifth dimensional. But at the same time, it's basically opening up a portal in through to the fifth dimension. And mind you, there is a lower fifth dimension and a higher fifth dimension, where the lower fifth dimension is a little bit more intertwined with the astral plane. But basically, this merge is happening, this convergence of dimensions is happening. And one of the most direct ways that you'll experience this is through time. And so you're going to learn so much about the truth of time. It's not something that is universally true for everyone in the way that you can actually process time, because every soul and its own lineage of journey through the macrocosm will have a different way of relating with multidimensional time. And so even if there's like a bunch of advanced multidimensional, interdimensional souls incarnated as human form, they're going to have a drastically different way in which they relate to time. So think about, like, say you're playing a video game, you get to choose a character, and each avatar has like different skill sets and different way that they fight, for example. Or even if you play like a sports video game, each of the different players have a different skill sets or the way that they play the sport, even if it's the same sport. And the same thing goes for time. So like depending on the expression of your oversoul and the incarnation archetype that you chose to embody in this life, you're going to have a very unique way of processing time. And this is essentially what is going to alter the matrix of time more and more, is when the interdimensionals start stepping more authentically into the way that they process time. And first and foremost, this is obviously mental. So even if there's 24 hours in a day, same 60 minutes in an hour, same 60 seconds in a minute, the way that you actually surf through those linear constructs of time, it creates ripples through the astral, and it creates ripples through the collect. It's basically opening a time portal. It's like a time machine opening up through the way that you render time through your consciousness onto the collective field. That's called grid work. That's a form of grid work. And we're going to go deeper into grid work later on in this video, because it's also a massive kind of theme coming up in 2025. But essentially, time alchemy is one of the biggest themes coming up, your ability to weave through time. And this is so advanced, actually, the way that you navigate through time and the way that you kind of construct your cognitive patterns around time, and the way that you align with your authentic perception of time and qualitativeness of time. It's going to kind of open up new doorways in which you can start to harness your higher consciousness as well. So yeah, just start to get curious how your avatar, your little incarnated human avatar, the skill sets that you have around time, your specific particular warping around time. Another good example is if you think about like cooks or chefs who cook food, they have a very unique way of cooking food. And it's like you just have a unique way of cooking time, how you deal with it, how you handle it, how you think about it, how you process it, and how you align your energy through this weaving of time, which is something that we share. We all share this field of time. Okay, so that's number one. That's the first piece. Actually, that was not the first piece that I was planning to talk about. That's one that wanted to just kind of come out right away. So apparently that's a big theme. So what you're going to realize is like, yes, it's 2025. And yes, a lot of people will say like time is just flying by, but it's not flying by. It's going through an energetic upgrade, and you're going to realize by the next kind of few years passing by that literally every single slice of time, and in the way that you kind of calibrate through time, it opens up literally like vertical pockets of time. So if you think about timelines, or the collective timeline is like a horizontal plane, but you realize that there's like multi-dimensional vertical axis of time, and you quite literally get to weave through all these different planes of time and energetics, and then we get to all kind of just have a party on Earth. A galactic party on Earth. Okay, the next theme that I want to point out is stabilization. So sorry, if you're watching my content and you're not triggered by my presence or my energy, most likely you're an extremely galactic being. Otherwise you'd be like, who is this and why is she talking? Why is she doing anything at all? I can just tend to trigger that response in some people. It also means that your third eye is extremely open, if you could see right through my facade and my little ego. So if you're watching this, you're most likely a like extremely advanced galactic consciousness rendered here on Earth. And yes, everything is galactic in origin, but there's levels to this shit, right? And so there are certain waves of galactic souls that their frequency is so otherworldly, plane of existence, that it's been extremely difficult for you to actually completely ground and anchor your frequencies onto Earth. And also because the Earth herself, it was going through this massive calibration, especially in the last like 20 years, 10 to 20 years, I would say more emphasized around the last 10 years, the earth frequencies have just been kind of unstable, to say the least. The Schumann frequencies, the earthly kind of expressions of it's like, how can I describe this? It's like the earth was going through such a metamorphosis that the frequency plane of earth was really unstable, and it's still unstable. It's like up and down and up and down. It's, think about like girls when they're on their moon cycle and their hormones are just kind of like going nuts. Or more accurately, imagine when a girl is pregnant and their hormones are just like off the charts, like going up and down. That's kind of like similar to the Schumann frequencies of the earth recently, in the last 10 years. And this is actually going to almost amp up a little bit. That's why all the energies are so intense. And then towards the latter half of the 2020s, so up until like 2030, so for the next few years, it's going to begin to like slowly stabilize, where it's entering a new phase. And basically, we're at the height of that instability right now. But the thing about galactic consciousness is that you begin to feel and embody the energies a few years forward. And you begin to deal with energies a little bit more in advance than it is actually occurring on the earthly plane. So even if it's currently moving into 2025, if you are a very galactic soul, most likely you're already rendering energies from like 2028. And so you're gonna begin to actually stabilize, because you're beginning to tune into the stabilization of the earthly plane. And so you're gonna begin to actually stabilize higher facets of your consciousness, because the whole reason why the earth was going through all of these shifts and all of these fluctuations was to be able to integrate intergalactic plasmic information. And you could call that solar codes from other star systems and other solar systems beyond our own solar system. And essentially, all of the consciousness that we experience and we're vividly rendering, the light that you see in the periphery of your environment, the light that you see in your third eye, the light that you see in your dreams, the light that is composing all of the photons, the electrons, everything, all of those materials are from the sun. And beyond our sun, there's other suns, like, for example, Alcyone is our central sun, and then there's the great central sun. And then there's all these other suns from other star systems that you, as a starseed, is basically originated from, not in the sense that it's just like you're just, meandering around and you just end up here, but you've been genetically programmed to kind of reflect, basically, you have the genetic makeup, energetic circuitry that is primed to actually decode the plasmic information from other suns. And so when the earth field herself is not yet open to render those codes, which she hasn't really been in the past, in our era, in our little forgetfulness cycle, otherwise we wouldn't have forgot anything. We wouldn't have lost touch with, the masses wouldn't have lost touch with the truth of reality to this degree. And so as the Earth planet is actually gone through the upgrades to be able to calibrate and align with other solar systems, which was always meant to be. This was always the divine plan, so that the Earth herself goes through these initiations and ascension cycles. You're, as a human being, your incarnation is going to begin to access and stabilize those codes onto the physical, tangible plane. So even if your etheric body, which is, like layers outside of your physical and astral body, was able to connect with those star codes, and that's why most of you guys are just star seeds and you have all these extraterrestrial interfaces, you're actually going to physically, tangibly going to be able to ground into those codes on the planet. And so you're going to find authenticity. You're going to find that your external reality kind of really reflects the internal truth of your beingness. And so for a lot of people, this is going to be the beginning stages of truly stabilizing into the truth of your soul, the abundance, the ease, the grace, the everything, the power, the empowerment, the potency. So it's going to be a cycle of fruition. You're going to see things fruitioning, some things that you've been working on maybe for like the past decade. Because as my friend shared, it's a 9-year cycle. Stephanie, if you're watching this, I love you, bro. He was sharing how this year 2025 is like numerologically a 9 cycle, and it's the culmination of the past basically almost 10 years, because energies bleed. And so you're going to see the fruition of all of that, not only because of numerology, but just basically because of the cycles of change in general and the pivotal point in history that we're opening up. The next theme is oversoul integration. Because of these openings and the portals that are manifesting on the earthly plane and through your physical vessel, you're going to actually integrate aspects of your oversoul that you were previously unable to stabilize into before. This will literally cause, if I could even say the word cause, because they're really, truth transcends cause and effect, but there's going to be this influence of this oversoul integration that creates generational healing, literally generational healing, that is going to override the wounds and the patterns that have maybe felt like it was really challenging to do anything about. This level of oversoul integration, it literally carries grace. It's such a high level of light that it literally overrides any of the previous problems. Just like how there's a famous quote that says you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. Well, this level of integration of light, it's a different level of consciousness. And so it kind of overrides the issues that were there from the first place. So many of you are going to experience these oversoul integrations. You're going to come into like a remembrance of the like skills that you haven't had in the past. Some of your third eye is just going to expand. The vision scope is going to expand so much to see the truth in so many different aspects of energetics, to see the patterns in these higher energies and higher dynamics, higher level of truths. And remember that having your third eye upgraded doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to see a bunch of stuff visually. A lot of times visuals are like the most energetically inefficient way to process information. So if you were just to see everything all the time, it wouldn't be, just like an intelligent way to process all these information. So the visual vision scope is helpful when it's relevant. It's useful when it's relevant, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see stuff all the time, but you're just going to have a heightened perception of things in a way, like in qualia that you didn't even know existed. So if you understand qualia, it's like a sensory perception. Imagine the human people, they have 5 qualia, like sight, taste, hearing, touch. What's the other one? Smell. There's like new qualia that is opening, and it doesn't have ways to describe it. It's just basically just a higher way of interacting with frequencies and information and patterns. And for everybody, it's going to be different. So you're just going to like literally have psychic perception that you haven't had before, that you're going to begin to make sense of and begin to use. You're going to recall certain roles that you had in the past as an oversoul. Some of you are literally not going to have that many incarnations as an oversoul. Maybe you're like floating planetary energy or solar energy but not necessarily like incarnations, but they're all going to have these key themes in how it makes sense for you in this life. I mean, obviously in esoteric language, they talk about having these rays. And for some of you are going to activate some of those rays, whether it's like the love wisdom or what are the other ones? I don't really know. Like some of you are going to actually activate those rays of like that divine soul service onto this planetary consciousness. But some of you are not even going to be categorizable in a way that we had words for in the archetypes that we currently have, because it's literally celestial. All of these are celestial, which brings me to the next point of celestial feminine activation. There's going to be a wave of energies opening up of the celestial feminine. And yes, we have this whole uprising of the divine feminine and, you know, the feminine polarity as we understand it. But there's the next wave coming up that is celestial in nature, yet feminine. And it's just so outside of the scope of the way that we've previously understood what feminine energy is. But it's going to carry all the essence of that grace, that beauty, the love, the nurturance, the mother consciousness, but just on a next level. This is going to be really exciting. It's going to be so healing for the entire collective and for yourself as well. So next year, I'm actually creating a mastermind to focus on this because it's something that I've been tuning into and it's super exciting. And so if you resonate with this frequency, definitely keep an eye out for that. I'll be posting probably a video sometime in the next month. And if you're on the email list and if you're on Instagram and stuff, that's probably the best way to make sure that you get in the loop. And some people tell me that they often miss out on my offerings because they don't really check social media, but I'll do my best to put it on every platform. Sometimes I just like don't even. So I'll do my best because I know that it's something that some of you really would like to participate in. Next, I'm going to touch upon grid work. So when we talk about the stabilization of energies and the stabilization of your personal energy and the collective energy and the earth frequencies, grid work for some of you is going to amp up in its potency and its authenticity in the grids, the functionality of the grid work. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to jump around from place to place. Like a lot of people think you have to jump around from place to place. And that is true for some people. It depends on your energetic configuration. But some people do grid work just staying still, staying put. I'm going to make a video on grid work. I'm going to make like an entire video, an entire masterclass, and I'm going to publish it on YouTube on the higher perspectives of grid work because I feel like it's something that is really misunderstood. But once you actually process the higher level truths of it, it's going to take away a lot of confusion and it's going to help you perform it better, which means you're going to be on higher service to the earth, which means you're going to actually receive a lot more blessings. Not that you're doing it for the blessings, you're obviously doing it in service. But I just want people to understand that when you perform spiritual service, it is always rewarded unless you have a limiting belief system. You'll always be nurtured 1,000-fold when you perform genuine spiritual service out of the love of your heart for the collective. So grid work is amping up, and it's not just locational. It's not just geolocational. Yes, it is for a lot of people geolocational, but there's so many different layers of grid work. Money field is one of it. Time is one of it. Now, digital landscape is one of it. There's so many different forms of grid work. So I'll definitely make a video to dive deeper into this for those of you who are interested. Leave me a comment if you're actually excited about that video so I'll know to make it sooner. Because sometimes I just be like, churning on these ideas for a long time. I think I was like thinking about making a grid work video for almost a year and I just haven't done it yet, but it's actually ironically because I grid work a lot geolocationally. So it means I have to move around from city to city. And then it's really challenging for me to like sit down and even come across a place that is conducive for me to film stuff, but end up, because, you know, whatever. I'm not going to just like vent. Okay, so the point is I'll make the grid work video. And the last but not least, and this is a theme that if you know, you know, is the Divine Union template. This divine union template is activating for so many high level star seeds. So many high level souls are stepping into divine union. And it's not about you, it's not about the people, it's not about the person. It's literally because the universe requires that genuine divine union energy, because now it's time to evolve. It's not a joke. Like, we're all gonna evolve so much in the next few years. It's not even funny. It's really not even funny how much we're all gonna evolve in the next few years as a planetary collective and as a human collective and every level of it, as a galactic collective. We're all just gonna evolve, and there's no turning back. There's literally no like, we're all going to evolve so much, to a point where, you know, when you watch Pokemon and the Pokemon will like gain new skills and become a better little Pikachu, but at some point the Pikachu will just turn into a whole different form, like a Raichu. That's literally happening to our planet, and that's literally happening to the human collective. That's literally happening to our entire solar system. This is literally happening to our galaxy. This is literally happening to our whole universe. This is literally happening to our whole multiverse. Our entire multiverse is going through a transformation to the degree that has never had before in its entire history. It's actually mind-blowing. Like, even the whole multiverse has not had this type of evolution for like an infinity of time. And the reason why it's able to go through that level of evolution is the manner in which consciousness decided to separate itself and polarize itself to this degree that we're experiencing this 3D reality as these messed up human people. I'm just half kidding. I mean, look, I'm not complaining, but just look at the severity of the distortions in this third dimension. I'm not hating. Like, it's just going to be freaking amazing to watch the undoing of this distortion, which we're actually stepping into in the next few years. But because of the degree at which universal, I don't even want to say universal, unified source consciousness decided to dive itself to this level of separation, to experience this level of reality, and then restore it back into unity, causes ripples, creates ripples of unfathomable evolution to every single level of reality, down and up into the severity of every single multiverse and the layers of higher intelligence that we can't even imagine, is going through an evolution because we decided to experience this and then restore it. So that domino effect all the way up into the macrocosm is going to be insane. It has never evolved this much in the history of infinity. It's going to be quite mind-blowing, to say the least. So what I'm trying to say here is, this is the reason why a lot of you guys are going to come into an actual divine union, because that is energetically tantric, which is non-dual. And I just want to remind you that no matter how many people create content or teachings about twin flames, soulmates, and divine union, what I could say as a sovereign psychic, I don't want to call myself that, but I am psychic, but like, I don't know what else to say. Actually, my third eye is like hyperdimensional. What I can say with confidence is that every divine union template is so unique and convoluted. It's not predictable. And it's something that you should be very much curious how it unfolds, because it is literally the most complex template that I've ever, or that we've ever, that ever exists. Like, it's just so strange how it's just unpredictable, and unassumable, and non-cognitive. It doesn't make any sense, which is good because it'll drop you into the heart. Anyway, that I was just trying to say, be open and curious and don't make assumptions around this divine union template. But yeah, it's happening for you, whether this year or it's just like the initiation. And remember that sometimes you'll go through these connections that will actually prepare you for the true divine union. So don't get attached. The funny thing is, every single one of those learning steps, and I'm basing this on my experience, even the relationships or connections that I've had in the past, will have signs that this could be the one. But that's part of it, because if you didn't think that it could be the one, then you wouldn't dive into it with your full heart open. And so don't get attached is all I'm saying. And just continually interact with the template and the internal divine union, which is between your manifest self and your higher self. So quite literally, you're going to start to realize that your higher self becomes your default consciousness, like a part of your tangible default consciousness. And this is the craziest feeling, you guys. It doesn't snuff out your ego. It doesn't do that, because your ego and your personality is important, but you'll start to get less attached to your ego because you quite literally see that there's this other level of you that composes probably like 99.7% of your entire experience as an individuated life form is actually your higher self and your oversoul. When you actually see the magnitude of your higher self consciousness and how it kind of processes reality, your human is really just a tiny surface little peel of the entire experience of your consciousness. And so you'll get less attached to your ego, but your ego will still run. Obviously, over time, it will crystallize and kind of become more authentic, less influenced by external expressions of different archetypes that are not inherent to your current incarnation. So less affected by other astral influences as well. But you'll quite literally start experiencing your life through the lens of your higher self through different cycles of time. So whereas say that before it was like 90% of it was ran through by your ego and 10% of it was like higher consciousness, it's going to become like this higher gamma activation, this internal divine union will make it so that it's almost like half and half. And obviously we're going to keep going up from there. And I'm not saying that this is going to be the case for everyone, because not everyone is on that level, which is not good or bad. It's just like, I have to just point out, like, this should be just a confirmation. If this is like the first time that you're feeling these frequencies, or you know, people can be delusional and think that they're on a certain level when they're not. And there's nothing I can do about that. But I just want to point out that some people can be delusional, even if this doesn't resonate to the core of your being. You know, I'm not saying that this is out of reach, but some people need a lot more inner work before they could actually get to this level. But some of you are genuinely on the level where you're going to start experiencing your higher self. It's kind of like osmosis. If you have a glass of water and you start dropping in like another color liquid, it, you know how it will just create this beautiful osmosis in the water. Your higher self integration through the human vessel, it changes the entire color to something that is so pristinely of your soul. And it's irreversible once you actually genuinely make contact with that and start to actually integrate it, process it. Your life. And you might think like, okay, imagine that as an oracle, imagine I'm giving you an oracle session and I was telling you, oh, like it's less about your physical reality, but your entire internal reality is going to change 1,000%, like 180 degrees. It's going to change. Some of you might be in a progression where me, if I was an oracle and I gave you a personal reading and I said it's less about your physical reality, but first and foremost, your internal reality is going to go through the most drastic change. If you're like going to be salty about that prophecy, then that's probably not you yet. You need a little bit more work. But if you were to hear that prophecy and you would just be ecstatic about that because you actually get it, what that feels like to have that much of an internal shift, and you understand at that level, you get it, that the physical reality is really not the primary thing here. It's not the primary thing. It's not the primary truth. And it's subject to the internal experience. So if you actually would get ecstatic about that prophecy, then that would signal that you may be one of those people who this message is genuinely for. I've been going off on a tangent. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this general template reading of 2025.